Something absolutely mind-boggling to me every day is to watch some of the biggest entertainment companies in the world have no idea how to use the intellectual property, the characters, the art, really at the end of the day, that's what it is, that they own. They don't really know how to make something good out of it, something that's enjoyable. Sometimes they know how to make something corporate. Sometimes they know how to make something that builds up to 50 other things almost as an extended preview to another movie, but they don't actually know how to make a film. They don't know how to actually craft a story, and they don't seem to want to bring in the people who do. The company I'm thinking of in this instance, and I'm sure there's probably like 50 companies that came to the heads of many people immediately, but the one I'm looking at is Sony. Now, Sony with Spider-Man, over the years, has actually made some good decisions. And when I mean over the years, I mean over the decades. Way back in the day, whether you love this interpretation or not, I personally do, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies were wildly popular. Now, even with the interference of some of the more corporate figures like Avi Arad, who I probably said his name wrong, I don't really care. You know, when you have some of these people who were getting involved and kind of pushing towards the toy line side of the business or the business side of the character, yes, you did have some interference. You had things like Spider-Man 3, where executives wanted Venom because Venom was cool, and Sam Raimi didn't want Venom because he didn't really connect with the character. But we got Venom, and it was fine. Like, I really like Spider-Man 3, but it's very obvious that Venom was kind of like the odd one out of that storyline, that he was kind of pushed into it. And it's unfortunate because I love that story, I love that movie even as it is, and I love the editor's cut as well, but it's one of those things where because of that strained push, Sam Raimi kind of backed off, and they ended up having to totally reboot because they were allegedly pushing him to make a script and make a movie too quickly, and it was going to be bad, so he left. And then of course we had The Amazing Spider-Man, and that I also really like. I even like The Amazing Spider-Man 2 a lot, but a big issue with the second movie in that franchise was that they were really pushing to build to 50 other things. You know, we'd have to have a Sinister Six movie, and maybe we should put MJ in here. Oh wait, we don't have time for MJ, cut that out. But we could put in Felicia Hardy. We should build to a Black Cat movie. Let's have a Sony universe with the Sinister Six and all this stuff. And it just becomes so packed because really at the end of the day, Sony, it sees Spider-Man not just as a moneymaker, but as the moneymaker, like as a golden goose that they want to beat into the ground and get every last nickel out of. And that's unfortunately where we're at right now. Really quick, if you do enjoy this video, you want to leave a like, subscribe, it means the world to me. I am trying to still grow this channel and I appreciate it very much. I do have a question of the day for you, which is, what is your favorite Spider-Man movie? I'm just interested in what your favorite is and why. Now, when it comes to Spider-Man, obviously Spider-Man fans are very torn on everything. It's like, well, is Tom Holland, you know, the best mixture? No, he's Iron Boy Jr. Oh, well, is Andrew Garfield the best? No, he's too whiny, you know, he's too hipster. Well, what about, you know, the Tobey Maguire version? No, he's too different. It doesn't follow the comics enough. So like, you'll always have Spider-Man fans, and by the way, there are some legitimate criticisms of all these things and all these versions, but you'll always have Spider-Man fans kind of at each other's throats over these versions of the characters. Now, I know that fans will say that they do want one clear thing. Like, they'll say, well, we want street level Spider-Man, you know, we want that direction for Spider-Man. And I do think that a majority of fans do want that. But then you also did have the fans who loved the MCU Spider-Man the way he was. You did have the fans who loved the Amazing Spider-Man the way he was, you know, that didn't want the Tom Holland reboot at all. And they're not going to be happy with it no matter what because they loved Andrew. And that's fine too. Then you have the people from all the way back with Tobey like that too. And so Sony is kind of juggling these multiple versions of Spider-Man, but they don't really know what to do with any of them, even seeping into their other various projects. Like, for example, Madam Web, a movie that probably never should have gotten greenlit, starring Dakota Johnson. And honestly, the only reason to see this movie is because the girls in it are gorgeous. That's really about it. But other than that, like, there's no substance to the film. and the film was reportedly stripped down like a car chop shop job, because the film was going to tie into multiple versions of Spider-Man in multiple different ways for live action, and then they kept reversing course on it to the point where it makes vague references to the idea of Spider-Man existing, and that's about it. I mean, Kraven the Hunter is a movie that's still coming out, and that Sony executives basically said they were delaying till around Christmas time because they believed people would have so much fun that they'd spend the holidays watching it again and again. Look, I'm someone who has some mental illness problems, okay? Got depression, I've got anxiety disorder, and I got a lot of stuff going on. But with as much mental issues as I may have, even I would never in my wildest dreams claim that people will probably spend the holidays watching Kraven the Hunter again and again. And that's even with someone like Aaron Taylor Johnson, who is a fantastic actor. Now look, maybe the movie will be great. You know what? I think the Venom movies are fun, even though I don't think they're very good films, but I think they're fun movies. And that absolutely could happen with Kraven the Hunter. But Sony's not exactly batting 1,000 here. Like, they recently had Madam Web completely flop, Morbius was turned into a total joke, they randomly threw the Vulture in the end of the film. Like, they're just trying to build to something, but I don't think they even know what it is at all. With reports now coming out, we'll have to see if this is true looking forward, once this movie comes out, that Venom 3, Venom The Last Dance, is not only going to be the final Tom Hardy Venom movie, which is already kind of silly because those movies rake in cash, so I'm shocked at that, but also that it's going to feature a 10-year-old Peter Parker, that essentially they're going to have a storyline about Venom being put in a position where he has to protect Peter Parker before he grows up and becomes Spider-Man, which is weird because this is also a storyline that was partially going to allegedly be in Madam Web at one point, of having this younger Peter Parker and having, needing to prevent the death of him, essentially. But then again, it allegedly changed a little bit into protecting the Spider-Women from being killed before they could become the Spider-Women that we will never see them become in a movie, because it's shown for like 10 seconds in a flash forward in Madam Web, a film that you can bet will not be getting a sequel because it did really bad. So at the end of the day, Sony is kind of stuck in this weird spot. Allegedly, Kevin Feige is arguing for a street-level Spider-Man. I think that's kind of where I'd like to see it go for Tom. And that essentially, moving forward, that him and Charlie Cox's Matt Murdock, Daredevil, would be kind of headlining that side of the MCU, as reported by Fandom Wire and others. And that's kind of a cool idea. I do like it, but something I will say about that too is that Sony doesn't want that, according to reports. Sony reportedly wants Tom to be in another big multiversal romp, like No Way Home, which I love No Way Home. I adored it. It seems that Sony wants to replicate that instead of continuing the storylines naturally of their different spiders, instead of actually naturally continuing the storyline of Tom, kind of moving him off on his own, at least for a movie or two, to kind of get his bearings, gain ground, and establish himself. They don't seem to want to continue the Tobey Maguire story because, according to Sam Raimi, he was never contacted about it. Now, there are obviously the rumors that, they want to do Spider-Man 4. There are rumors that they want to continue Amazing Spider-Man, that they want to do these different versions. I'd love to see them, but really a lot of the rumors around those two versions of the characters were mainly that they wanted to bring them back essentially for another team-up movie. Now, that said, there are reports from reliable sources now that Sony wants to bring back these Spider-Man actors, that they've been considering it, and that they want to bring them back to continue their own movies and then have them appear in the Sony Spider-Man universe's multiverse adventures. Now, here's the thing. I would actually be fine with this if the movies are well written and if they were actually given proper time to develop. My problem with Sony right now is that as much as I love the original Spider-Man trilogy, as much as I love The Amazing Spider-Man 1 and really enjoy 2, even though it had tons of interference, I don't know if Sony is understanding what they need to do to give this room, to give these characters development, to actually let them grow as people in their own stories. Like, letting them grow as people isn't just they team up once and then, you know, a year later they team up again immediately. Letting them grow is like, okay, well, now Tobey Maguire, he experienced these events of No Way Home, he got injured, he's going back home. What's happening with him? Is he starting a family? You know, because with him, you have room to do Spider-Girl. You know, you have room to do something like him raising Mayday and actually her becoming a spider. You know, what about Andrew? You know, he's going home and he's gone through this traumatic event. He's met the other versions of himself that basically, you know, he was kind of seeing as brothers in a lot of ways. And now he's kind of less lonely, but he's pushed back into his own world where he is the main superhero, which is lonely again, obviously. So how does he cope with that? How does he develop? He said at one point he stopped pulling his punches and, you know, he kind of became angrier and more bitter and disenfranchised. What happened there? Well, we don't really get to see that. We just hear about it a little bit. Okay, well, how is he coping with what happened? How is he developing? Is he going to meet his version of Mary Jane? What happens there? It doesn't seem like Sony knows that they need to actually visit these different worlds and expand those characters' stories if they want to do anything more with them. Marvel Studios has done a bang-up job with a lot of stuff that has frustrated me, but they really did pull Spider-Man out of the fire after The Amazing Spider-Man 2, because that movie, I love it, but it became a real mess because of Sony's greed of trying to push towards a universe that they hadn't built to at all. And so when Marvel Studios got involved, when Kevin Feige got involved with Spider-Man, it really did help save the reputation of the character. Now online, you'll have all these people that are mad about Iron Boy Jr., you'll have all these people who are mad about, you know, Spider-Man taking second place to some other characters sometimes in his movies, and that's fine, and those are valid criticisms too of a lot of the films. But to the general public, that really saved Spider-Man in a lot of ways. And that wasn't Andrew Garfield's fault, that was Sony's fault. The same way it was Sony's decision to lean into Venom being PG-13 and not be willing to dive into that dark, mature side of the character that they could have done and done a really good job and an interesting exploration of. Now, unfortunately, it just worked out super well for them, became really popular, but Venom is a character that could have used rated R. I mean, we had Carnage in the second film where you basically just had to pan away from him over and over again because of violence and show almost nothing. That's unfortunate. You know, and then you have the flops of Morbius and Madam Web and Kraven the Hunter being pushed off to, you know, later this year for whatever reason. Obviously the PR one being that people are just gonna love it too much. So like, these people can only be so erect for so long, basically. I really feel like there's a lot Sony could do with Spider-Man. There's a lot that they could do with exploring these characters, going back to different versions of them. And even when we look at the gaming side of Spider-Man, it's no different. They didn't give Insomniac enough time to cook what they were doing with Spider-Man 2. Marvel's Spider-Man 2 was supposed to be so much bigger. It was supposed to have random encounters with Venom, essentially, and all this cut content and so many things that just never happened because Sony pushed Insomniac to release the game too early. Now, the game cost a ton of money, I get that. The game was already in development for quite a while, I get that. And you can even say Insomniac was overreaching. Maybe. They had way more plans for that game that never materialized, and it was because Sony cut the time frame short. It could have been more. And it reminds me a lot of things like Spider-Man 3 or Amazing Spider-Man 2, where the reputation and legacy of that version of the character is somewhat affected by Sony's corporate decision making. And it's sad. It's really sad to see. If you enjoyed today's video and you want to support this channel, I appreciate you very much. We do have a channel membership feature. We do also have Patreon. Both of those things have exclusive videos and posts and stuff like that. We have other channels like JayRPG where I cover RPG games. We have channels like Magical Jill where we've been making videos about anime like Dragon Ball and Sailor Moon. And of course, we do also have Degenerate Plays where we play through games. We have our own Fortnite code, which is DJAY123, goes to help support this channel. And of course, we do have as well our wonderful, fantastic website, cosmobunny.shop, where we make comic book and manga resin pieces like coasters, keychains, trays, more. These are from repurposed, recycled comic books. These comic books were damaged, unable to be sold by shops, and so we take them for either dirt cheap or free, and what we do is we turn them into transformative art pieces for your home. My wife Jill also makes fantastic beaded jewelry over there. She does take requests, commissions, things like that as well. And there's all kinds of stuff already up on the website. All these purchases go to help support our channels and what we do. So I appreciate you very much. Have a fantastic day. And as always, everyone, stay shui.